Well, that was very wonderful. Thank you so much. I guess then we'll move on and hear from our last speaker of the day, actually, who is Miss Ruby Dela Cruz, who is Head of Quality and Product Development at Future Perfect. And Ms. Dela Cruz will be discussing business process outsourcing in the Philippines. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you for that introduction, Dr. Karen. Can everyone hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you. I'll just share my screen. Okay, so thanks so much again for that introduction. And I just want to start by saying what a privilege it is to be able to speak for the TAW once again. So the last time that I was able to speak for the conference was about 3 years ago. And I had the opportunity to go with our founders, our company founders, Dr. Jane Lockwood and Mr. Neil Elias, and visit PolyU. So that was a pleasant experience. So for today, I hope to be able to share with you some updates, fresh updates about the BPO industry. And also perhaps by the end of it, we'll have enough like points of interest and takeoff points for possible further research. Okay, so. All right, so I'll just start by first introducing the BPO industry. Okay, I know that many are familiar with it already, with the outsourcing and offshoring, but perhaps not everyone is aware of the scope of it in Manila. So I'd venture to say that if you live in Manila, it's highly likely that one member in your family or a friend of yours or very close relative will be working for the BPO. So it's a $26.7 billion industry. And just for reference, the total Philippine economy in terms of revenue would be $361.5 billion. It employs about 1.32 million in the Philippines, and that is in about 1,000 companies. So we can say from this that the BPO industry is a real key contributor to the Philippine economy, and it's about second alongside remittances when it comes to revenue. 13% of the global outsourcing market is in the Philippines, and it actually has grown so much from when it started about 20 years ago, when it was mostly voice support services being offered for mostly banks. Now, call centers account for only about 50 to 60% of total services, and then the rest will be non-voice services, and this is for a variety of sectors. Like there's IT services, there's back office HR and accounting, there's also the more emerging sectors of gaming and animation. We have seen this growth firsthand because at Future Perfect, we have been supporting the industry for the past 15 years. So that growth is really evident in terms of the type of projects that have been coming in for us, as well as the kind of clients that we've been having. So,
Ruby, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to let you know, I don't know if you want to make it full screen or not, but it's not full screen now. So just to let you know, I don't know if that was intentional or not. But just if I wanted you to know if you
yes,
decide you want to make it full screen
if I could do full screen. I'm just trying to do a slideshow. Let's see here.
Yeah, maybe on the lower. I'm trying to think of the best way to tell you to. Oh yeah, perfect. Okay, all right.
Okay,
sorry for interrupting.
No problem. Okay, yeah. So what happened with the BPO industry when the pandemic happened? I remember this was in March of 2020. We were supposed to travel to Hyderabad to conduct training for a financial services client. So we had to cancel that because cases were rising and lockdowns were happening in different countries. And so at that time, the government enforced ECQ, which is enhanced community quarantine for the Philippines. And as it is with most other places, only essential only essential businesses were allowed to operate, and public transport was discontinued. And so the streets of Manila were really empty, and only few people are really allowed out if they're going to do essential work. The interesting thing is the government classified BPO work as essential. So if you really look at it, it's not really essential, right? But because of the contribution to the economy, the government could not afford to lose such kind of revenue. So it was able to operate freely throughout the whole 2 years of this lockdown. The only restriction there was in terms of the capacity allowed on site. So during the strictest lockdown, it was 50% maximum on site. And that just changed. The proportion just changed based on, the level of lockdown that we have. So for the BPO industry, many hubs were closed down. On-site workers were provided shuttle service or accommodation in hotels. And then off-site workers were provided equipment and upgraded internet. So around these times, there's really, a bit of a decline in the demand for some of the services, especially those that are heavily affected, like hospitality and tourism. There were some layoffs, but for the most part, BPOs did their best to keep their employees, either by moving them from one LOB that closes to another one that opens, or reducing shift hours. And then by September of the same year, business has actually started picking up. While some sectors pulled out, as we mentioned, new sectors that were enabled by digital interactions that were really necessary during the lockdown started pouring in. So we have e-commerce companies, fintech, retail, healthcare, logistics, communication companies starting to outsource their services in Manila. It was around this time, I believe, that Zoom started operations in Manila. And in the past year, we have spoken to emerging businesses and giants in this sector, to assist them when they set up here in Manila. So we had conversations with Amazon, Delta, Marriott, Binance, Legado, and the like. So we can see that even at a time of global recession, the BPO industry was actually expanding. And with that, what was the impact? What was the changes in terms of customer service and communication? Perhaps some may say that communication with customers now require more empathy or reassurance because it's a time of pandemic. People are losing loved ones. They feel isolated. But the emotional requirement, the management of customer emotions, isn't really something new when we talk about customer service, because agents have been managing customer emotions from the very first day that they started taking calls or customer email. So that wasn't much of a change in terms of the requirement. Much less of a change will be the remote nature of communication. So while, for example, with the academe, it's a bit of a struggle adjusting to a remote communication setup. It's a given with the BPO industry because it's outsourced, it will be remote. The change will have to be, in a way, in the communication channels that are being used. While there's still a need for voice support, there's growth in the digital channels of chat and social media. So this is where we see most of the inquiries we have coming in, and even the last 3 projects that we've been working in all involve communicating in chat. So, and another area, and this is where the change has been huge in the industry, is how we actually support hiring and training of customer service skills. in the industry when everything needs to be done remotely. So pre-pandemic, all of this had to be on site. You have to report to the recruitment center to be hired, and you have to be onboarded right on site. So now that it needs to be remote, how did we adjust? What are the needs that were created, and what practices do we have along with that? So we'll be talking in a bit more detail on those points. And we'll start with communication assessment needs. So of course, tests need to be remote or self-access, but businesses that we have spoken with intend to use this not only while the lockdown is ongoing, but even post-COVID, because they have seen, the benefit of the flexibility of remote access tests, and also the ease of scale, especially for these massive hiring projects that BPOs usually have. They're very interested in automation. This is for an industry that, that's very keen on innovation and efficiency. So this is really something that they're very interested in. I wouldn't say that it's always a need, but there's always an interest around it, and they see the benefit of it. Reporting and analytics is another one. They're always asking about the cloud-based platforms where they can do smarter reporting, and analytics will be ready real time. A key need with assessments, another one, is authenticity. And by this, we mean, like, is the person who's taking the test actually the one who is applying? And are they not cheating? So this is a very valid concern when doing remote assessments. Integrated online talent management platforms are also really in demand. And this has to do with having everything centralized and having reporting and analytics connected to this platform as well. And then lastly, there's the timeless need for validity and reliability. Are the assessments that we have actually testing the skills that we need for the job role? Is it fit for purpose? And is the test reliable? Are you able to replicate the results across different raters and across different test sets? So these are the key assessment needs that we have seen. When it comes to training, some are similar, okay? And then other needs are varied, like from one BPO to the next. Of course, there's the need for live virtual training platforms that enable features of face-to-face. A favorite will be Zoom, WebEx, as well as Microsoft Teams. So these are the tools that we have seen them working with. Interaction has been identified as a need as well, where courses needed to be redesigned for virtual instructor-led training. Flexibility is another thing when people are not able to gather at the same time. They're looking for more self-access training modules, that can be delivered at people's convenience. It can be delivered more independently. So these next two needs, some are explicit with telling us they need this. The others are not so, but yet it is there. The need is there. So training for discourse, interactive, and strategic competencies. We see this becoming even more important in light of chatbots and automation. We need to train people in higher level communication skills that chatbots cannot accomplish. And those are these skills that we've mentioned based on communicative language competence. When chatbots are now able to handle routine transactions, agents need to be able to read between the lines and then identify the real need, whether it's explicit or not, and then address it with targeted solutions. They need to be able to express real empathy, to mitigate communication breakdown, and then navigate that interaction with the customer in the most efficient and cohesive way possible. Yeah, so on top of that, there's a need to pull everything together now that you have different modalities, different approaches to learning. How do you pull all of these together so they are cohesive and they work together to meet the learning and business needs? So there's quite a lot in terms of the requirements for assessment training and for assessment and training. And many of these needs actually existed before the pandemic. It's just that, COVID-19 helped to accelerate it. Okay, so given those needs, what have we seen on the ground? Okay. In terms of assessments, there is good use of hiring platforms such as Taleo or Workday. But we still see many companies like manually sending assessments to their candidates over email. And when that happens, the candidate profile is just built manually, right, in Excel sheets. And the same goes for reporting or analytics that need to be done. Recruiters are just left expecting candidates to practice the honesty principle with no guards against cheating. So for interviews, recruiters can use Zoom or other video calling platforms. They're effective on their own, but not in addressing the need for a seamless applicant tracking system. And then lastly, we've seen an uptake in fully automated language assessment tests. Yeah, some companies sort of swing one way by just having an organic assessment where it's just a qualitative judgment of the assigned interviewer. That's one way. And then the other extreme will be to go with fully automated language assessment tests. At present, we have seen these tests in the market that assess listening comprehension, pronunciation, grammar, and vocabulary, sometimes also the rate of speech that's called as fluency. While that has merits in terms of efficiency and practicality, we just need to make sure that the tests are addressing the key principle of assessment validity. Is it actually assessing for the skills needed in the job role, including discourse and strategic competence? In our experience, some of these automated tests actually have resulted in terrible washback in candidates. We have witnessed candidates, just reading text off of Google or just hashing out memorized scripts instead of trying to improve those skills that they are meant to apply when they get hired for the job. So when it comes to training, there are some good practices we have seen, and then also some opportunities. When lockdown started, it was more of a trial and error for many L&D teams as they rolled out fully remote training. So there's the tools. You got Zoom, Teams, you got success factors and use of other LMS. Initially, as one of our speakers mentioned earlier, Jessica, the approach was to just transfer whatever was done face-to-face into remote format. So you had full day classes, and no changes done to the face-to-face course. But then people learned after that based on experience, and they started making their session shorter, putting in more breaks, making it more interactive with breakout rooms, polls, or question and answer. They add more visual input and complemented the live virtual training with videos or e-learning or reading materials. Some still stick to the more traditional or formal training methods. For example, like full day process training. We have still seen that without much change. There's also insufficient soft skills training at times. Businesses expect agents to come in at a certain level with a certain level of soft skills without having to train for it. And then others expect agents to be able to just quickly shift from one communication channel to the next in terms of customer service. So there's difficulty around this as well, because you have different types of discourse in each channel, and so there's training needed in this as well. We have also seen disconnected learning projects and efforts. It's good to have a very extensive suite of e-learning materials or a very sophisticated LMS platform, but without a communication expert on the ground to actually monitor how it's being used and to evaluate the effectiveness of it, the efforts really are sadly wasted. We were talking to one client who asked us to roll out a one-day writing workshop, basically asking us to teach their staff how to write an experience reflection paper. And then when we probed a bit more and we had a look at the assessment, we found out that the instructions to the assessment was actually very confusing. They had to read like 2 pages of instructions, which were actually telling them to write more of a report rather than a reflection paper. And on top of this assessment that is rated by SMEs is actually required. They're required to pass it in order for them to get badges from the writing workshop track that they have from their e-learning courses. So you can really see that there's a disconnect there, and if you try to probe what the issue is, you will not just need to look at the final assessment, but to actually check how people are performing on those e-learning modules and whether they're actually learning the actual skills. So given this, we have seen the opportunities, we have seen some good things being done. At Future Perfect, we do our best to support our beloved industry with services and products that we have. We have a suite of research-based assessments that we call BU+. This is Business Process Language Assessment System. And we continue to work with our head of research, Dr. Jane Lockwood, to refine and to develop these assessment products and training products as well. We always go back to what we know about assessment principles, which is validity, reliability, practicality, and fairness. And we do our best to ensure that this is addressed in our assessments. We have voice assessment, writing assessment, chat assessment, as well as customer service skills and then screening tests. We test not only the proficiency skills of pronunciation and language, but also those that have to do with the higher communicative abilities of discourse, strategic competency, and solution strategy. And this way, we are able to gauge performance even at assessment, and it's valid because these skills are actually correlated with the KPIs of agents on the floor. These assessments are also available. They can be taken anytime and anywhere through our assessment portal. You can access it through a variety of devices and through different browsers. We have come up with a newer assessment, which is the automated VA. What we have done there is we have automated the delivery of the voice assessment. However, we have kept our human rater. Okay, so the assessment is only delivered online, but it is checked and it's scored by an expert assessor. This helps to address the requirements of BPOs when it comes to flexibility and scaling, while not compromising on the validity of it. We also have a cloud-based platform that we call Quarto, which stands for Quality Analytics of Recruitment, Training, and Operations. It's a cloud-based platform. It has integrated data collection, tracking, and reporting with customizable dashboards for analytics. It comes equipped with video proctoring, which is one requirement to help guard against cheating. There's random image capture while the applicant is taking the test. And all of this is saved on the system for the recruiter to be able to check real time or post assessment. There's also lock and track features. And this is basically the system knowing what's being done by the candidate on his screen and on his keyboard. And it records that, and the assessor will be able to see it on an audit trail. If they reach a certain number of violations, then they're locked out and they're not able to continue their application. And so lastly, the system also integrates with other talent management platforms, for example, TAW. That way, data tracking becomes seamless. So this is how we currently support BPOs in terms of assessments. In terms of training, as we said, there's insufficient training around the soft skills. So we offer that. We train for discourse, interactive, and solution skills. And we ensure that we work very closely with the business so that we understand the specific gaps. We conduct needs analysis as well as benchmarking so that the content will be targeted to the actual skill level of the participants. We provide for different delivery options. In an ideal setting, you'll have participants all accessing from individual laptops, all remotely or all face-to-face. But we know that in the BPOs, because it's a hybrid working arrangement, it's likely not going to happen. So you have a mix of different people, some accessing from on-site, some remote, some may even be accessing from one device. So, and because of that, we provide for different types of materials that can be adapted by the trainer so that it can be delivered whatever mode the training will be. And we also know that we can't do all of this no matter how many training sessions we roll out. There will always be a need for further development. So we also upscale the L&D teams for more effective training delivery. We provide train the trainer sessions and workshops for them. And then on top of that, because we are a communication advisory, we provide consultancy services to support BPOs in developing and refining their learning architecture towards better communication performance. And that's including the various ways that we get staff to learn. So it could be synchronous or asynchronous methods, formal or informal, as needed by the distributed workforce. Okay, so there's still further need because the industry continues to grow. There's always a need for further support in terms of communication assessment and training. What does the future hold for BPOs? If we look at statistics, it's all very positive. Global market growth is forecasted to be at $230 billion by 2027. And this is still a very conservative projection. If we look at other estimates for the emerging sectors, in the Philippines alone, revenue rose by 1.6% in 2020 and still projected to further increase. In the interest of time, okay, I'll just go through the next slides a bit more quickly. But the outlook for BPOs is that remote work is here to stay. And I can say that because in the Philippines, there's already a directive for people to come back to work completely. So it's fully on-site. However, many BPOs decided to keep their hybrid working arrangements, even if they have to lose their tax breaks, because they have identified that people may be leaving the company if they ask for them to work fully on site as well. So it's a way to be able to keep people as well as keep clients. digital transformation is here to stay, and we can see it in the sophisticated chatbots we have, in the need for cloud computing, AI, and robotic automation. It's not meant to replace humans per se. That has never been the question. It's just a matter of freeing humans from the manual and repetitive work so that they can move on to support more complex processes and provide personalized support. So I'll stop here. Okay, I won't go through the list of implications for research. These are mainly our suggestions for where we may be able to do further studies when it comes to the BPOs. Okay, so that's the end of my my discussion. Thank you.